All right, ready for the June 27th, 2024 Town of Somerville Design Review Board meeting. First is the approval of the May 23rd minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, no signs. Then the next first orders of business are 829 Travelers Boulevard and the 19 unit townhome and then the 21 unit townhome. Now we have to do them separately, but we can talk, if y'all want to talk about them together, that's fine. And if you want to just give a kind of a brief overview or whatever you feel like you need to say, or what has changed, or I'm not trying to rush you, so make sure you've signed in.
Jeff Roberts, JJR Development. We appreciate the consideration of the board looking at these projects for final approval. A lot of the give and take and suggestions that we went through, conceptual, preliminary, and final were very productive. We listened, we adopted most of the comments which we deemed really worthwhile. Patrick, in the interest of the speed, we go and change. Converted to metal portrudes. We did the infiltration test, which was brought up. You know, that dry pond versus wet pond, we had Terracon analyze it, we passed that out. Unfortunately, it doesn't infiltrate as much as we would like, but we did have our geotechnical engineers.
So sorry if I missed this, but is this still going to be a dry pond or?
Still a dry
Still a
pond,
dry
that
pond.
has to do with the depth of the drainage ditches that we must tie into.
Sure.
It's too deep, so to make it a wet pond, you'd have to make the pond so deep that they'd be like steep like this.
Right.
And you'd end up with like a thimble of water and dangerous condition.
So you're able to maintain sod or grass in that dry pond then?
Yeah, and I don't know how much sod maybe we're gonna try to use. I think if you go to the next slide, you can see the bottom row, sort of the different types of
Mhm.
grasses that they're proposing. So it's a little more, it has a little more texture and it's not just sort of a mowed,
Okay,
wet sod.
Something that looks natural.
Something that looks yeah, something that looks a little nicer and better for
more sustainable.
bees and birds and all that.
All right, thank you for that. Bill, let's start with you. Do you have any questions or comments on
No.
either of these?
I think it's fine.
Peter, site or
How-
architecture?
Are all the shutters the same color? Is that the proposed?
That's the proposed. I
Okay.
think we'd like to keep it, they're not that big of a development, so we're trying to keep it consistent.
I think they should be all one color.
Yeah, I do.
And then can we go to the side elevation?
Thanks, Dan.
Do you think there's an opportunity to add one more window on the lower?
It's a staircase, so it's not a good, I can't fit it without getting it almost to that vertical trim piece.
If you eliminate the trim piece? The only thing I would
That's a.
mention, but it's your marketing, is I think daylight in a townhouse situation is valuable. And if you can add one more source of daylight, and yes, it's at the stair landing,
Yeah.
which I think architecturally, that's a nice feature. But I'll leave that up to you. Just a suggestion.
We'll certainly look at it. I did look at that initially and ended up bringing that window on the other side down, even though it's in the garage, because it just, once we sort of put the shutters on and spread it all out, the weight of the upper floor felt way too,
I think
just didn't balance.
it doesn't have to mimic the other windows.
Yeah.
It could be a different size or shape.
Okay.
But I do agree that the vertical trim would have to probably be removed in order to tuck it further toward the powder
Okay.
room.
We'll take a look
But
at
again,
the
I'll
two
leave
options
that
and
up to
see.
you. Otherwise, I think you did a great job.
Candy, do you have any comments?
I think it's gonna be a wonderful project. Looks, colors are great. The additions you did are good. And the site plan is beautiful. Very good.
Appreciate it.
All right, I think it looks good as well. So they're requesting final approval. So item number 1, 829 Travelers Boulevard Townhomes. Is there a motion?
I motion that we grant final approval.
Second.
Any further comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much.
All good.
Next is for the second one. I don't have the address on here, but it's the proposed 21 unit townhomes.
No, there's 2 projects. We just.
Oh, you
presented
got
together.
another?
Yeah, they talked about them both together.
Okay.
So is there a motion? They're requesting final approval. Candy was.
Make a motion.
right,
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. All righty, appreciate you. Next is Cross Creek Drive, new mixed-use development.
Got two then.
Thank you.
That's great, yeah.
I'm going to share with my soliloquy on Patrick Bonnet.
So going over Tim's comments from the previous meeting, I copy and pasted those in your staff report here. They're starting at the bottom. So these suggestions, future submittals, I won't read through all of them in the interest of time. But after going over the plans and looking at those preliminary comments, it appears that they have all been addressed by the applicant. Patrick, if you want to.
Okay, so, if you remember, this one actually was built in initially with the townhome project at Conceptual, but we took a little bit longer to bring this one back because it's a little more difficult. We wanted to get it just right, so, you go ahead and move through, we'll just. Do you want to go through, you know where it is? You want to see the site location one more time?
Where is it?
Just real quick, yeah.
Yeah, go to the first,
I'm just gonna interrupt, sorry.
sure, please.
I would prefer you, or I want to suggest this is pushing buildings 2, 3, 4, and maybe the commercial building towards the street, even 5 feet. So you can fit more landscaping between the parking lot and the street. Y'all can take a look at that. And I've heard on other buildings too, but particularly on those first ones, I think you pretty easily have the room. You could take a look at that, but just
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
foundation planting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I think the angle of the commercial parking lot on the commercial building is a little awkward. It seems like it would be a lot better if it just was
Yeah.
parallel with the rest.
Initially, when seeing it big like that, I kind of don't disagree with you. Initially, we had a building there and it made more sense for the parking to follow the front building.
Right.
But in this case, it probably makes more sense for the parking lot to all just be in the same. example.
Yeah. Just ask you to take a look at that, but all right. And then notice you had a crosswalk on the right-hand drive, but not on the left-hand drive. As you're coming off of Cross Creek Drive. On
Entrance drive.
the entrance drives, you have a crosswalk on the right side, on the right driveway, but not on the
Not,
left driveway.
I mean, crossing the driveway itself.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Make sure that gets added.
That was my only landscape or site related comments?
Can you talk about the architecture
Yeah.
to refresh my memory?
Moving on to the architecture, we restudied that facade, tried to bring in, more traditional detailing, but still maintain a little bit of a modern flair like we talked about in the previous meeting. So we removed a lot of that vertical siding and the windows no longer are cut tight into, siding. You've got trim around them, you've got all traditional sills. We, on the towers, we're using like a hardy panel or similar products. We used horizontal siding with sort of the same material, but just a vertical version of it at the upper level, to just give a little bit of a break in that. And then I think what I really like with this project is the window. I think the window detail over 3 just really fits well with the architecture. We've added in additional roof brackets for some detailing and a little bit of a overhang on the water tower.
If I can jump in for a minute to augment what Patrick was saying, to refresh everyone's memory. We were trying to do something creative with a little, without going overboard, creating a little bit more contemporary flair, so it didn't look like a more, the same old syndicated product because. You know, it's 2005 called it, this plan set back. You're trying to do something fresh. The comments were very productive and conceptual. Like, what does this want to be when it blows up? It wasn't quite as modern. Was it next in architecture? It doesn't belong here at this location, but we didn't want to do the humdrum, sort of homogeneous. So we really, the reason it took longer for us to bring this one back, it was really intensive study with about 8 different iterations of trying to get it right and trying to get sort of a refreshed low country motif that was in 2025, not 2005. So the building looked fresh and new, and new building was new and not something that was just hanging out there for a while. So really getting it right and what it wanted to be when it grew up. That's what took the extra time and extra study.
I like your preliminary DRB elevation much better than conceptual. So the top elevation is much better. Big improvement.
Go to the next slide, see that side elevation. I also think it's,
I'll put it in.
Much better, much better.
and then next slide, just start looking at color studies, and I know the screens are different than reality, but we're looking at kind of giving some weight to those tower elements that stand out from the regular apartment siding. So we, at the moment, we're proposing 3 colors, so there'd be 2 of each on the site, and so this one is gray with white on the sides. This is what's represented in the renderings. One of them is dark blue, and I think it might be darker than what's represented. Last one is first 2 with a very light gray or the bronze, dark bronze. You want to skip through, I think at the very bottom, there's kind of pushed to the end by accident there. Commercial building. There. So the commercial building, it's a small little office building, has 4 units in it. We're taking the motif from the office and tried to use some of that language without, overcomplicating this building. It's a small building, it's sort of simple.
Primarily for professional office, accounting, architect, something.
Yeah, so this would be the bottom view is the parking lot view, and then you go have one is the street. Now, if you go back up to the rendering, you can kind of see what that looks like in practice. They're like almost right there. Okay, so this is the overview of the site. That's the bottom right is the small office building. That's the view from across the street looking at the office. In reality, those two trees you see that are sort of blocking the view are giant, not giant, but bigger than that, live oak trees that we're maintaining. They sort of bend towards the road. Model that exactly, but I think you'll see a little bit more of the lower part of the facade, but probably even less of the sidewalks we'd be adding. But it's currently that there's no sidewalks, trees will add the sidewalk. Frontage slide. You look back the other direction, so it's the last building. Back towards that entry.
All right, any comments on site?
I'm fine.
Peter?
Can we go to a site plan or the perspective rendering? So I'm confused on the front of the building, the back of the building. What is along Cross Creek? Is that the front of the building? Do people come into the building from that side, or everything is loaded from the parking lot?
Not that, that's the office building. They're breezeways, so they go all the way through, so you can walk through out to the sidewalk. Side. Difference is the elevation. Slightly different elevation on the parking lot side.
So you have a sidewalk on the street side?
There should be, I think it's not represented.
Okay. Directly onto these stair points or continuous along the building?
Needs
The
to be-
sidewalk.
Needs to be continuous along the front of the building with access to the street sidewalk.
Okay, so that's what you are
Yeah,
planning? Okay,
Yeah. It's answer yes.
okay. And
Yeah,
I see no sidewalk along that side, so based upon what you said, there would be.
I think we can do it. I don't know if it's necessary. It's something.
I would say if I don't know if it's necessary, it's depend on your site and whatever the city is expecting. But certainly from that side, then we don't need to see the stairwell, do we? Because you talked about bringing this into 2025. The only element that doesn't do that is the open stairwell. And that still says to me something back in the 80s, 90s.
That makes sense.
And if you go to the elevation, you can see, I can see that. So this open stairwell just still says, this is a walk up, any type of Motel 6 type building. I like the modern architecture you introduced. I don't know why you only put on the ends a canopy over the top window versus on every floor in that bay.
Well, don't you have?
Can you go
balconies
back?
Under the other ones,
No, can you go back, Becca?
Yeah,
So
balcony.
see how you have,
windows, but you have a balcony, so your windows protected with the balcony. You
here,
don't need a
no, I'm
canopy.
talking about here.
Yeah.
Those
You
are
got
balconies.
canopies because those are exposed to the weather.
Yeah, these have a balcony, these don't.
The other two
I
have
know.
balconies.
I'm just questioning why you have one awning canopy
That's all you need.
over the top unit.
You can respond. Let him respond.
I guess I didn't, I don't know that it needs more. We're.
Are these rentals or are these purchase?
They're rentals all 2 and 3 bedroom, and they're gonna be area class A type of rental, which I think will ultimately attract the type of tenant desire to go to that public park facility, so that cigarettes, tracks, and stocks, I can see living here because we want to live here. Sort of unique and cool, but people will want to live here based on that recreational facility.
So can we go on the floor plan again? Because again, I'm confused. Is this parking lot side or is this street side? And is the parking lot side just a mimic? And then
That's street side.
I don't understand.
Go down. There's an elevation post.
Okay.
So
So this is like a double loaded corridor without the corridor. So these are individual units on the street. It's not a through unit.
that's the front, it's not a. That's the front side. And then the
Okay.
next elevation.
I would
Is it-
say you should study the open stairwell again. To bring that up to the same quality that you did in towers. And I would also add, this, you're doing a very good job with the hip roof and everything. Have you considered a stone wainscot base or something that solidifies the
We,
bottom?
we don't like stone in Somerville, Pete.
Brick,
Brick,
brick, that's what I meant.
brick foundation course. The open stairwells, I think the open stairwells are fine.
Have to stay like open air, but.
You can certainly do,
It works.
It's,
or you can do
Louvers.
louvers, hurricane shutters.
it's mixed knox.
And then I assume all the condensing units are hidden and everything, all that typical stuff.
Are the condenser units on the floor or on the ground or on the roof?
On the ground.
These will be on the ground.
We'll want to see
Yeah, we'll screen.
preferably permanent screening,
Yes.
at least along the street. If it, little fence, yeah.
So you showed different color schemes. Are those options or each building will have its own color scheme?
So what we're looking at is having 2 of each color, so there's 3 color schemes right now. If you go back to the rendering, you can see.
We didn't want to do them all the same in some fine dramatic color, but we want to make them as sort of forward-looking colors that have some vitality, but not make it look like.
Can we, Becca, could you go to the commercial building or even in the rendering? Or whatever you think shows the building the best?
Yeah. G7.
I mean, I kind of like I like the way the town, the multifamily is headed. The kind of took a little pause with the commercial building. Doesn't look quite right to me. Think it's glass being hidden a little bit with the live oaks. Maybe the roof's a little bit busy. I'm not sure. I like the way the walls kind of come in and out a little bit. The windows look like they might need some shutters or something, or maybe the massing of the roof needs to be restudied a little bit. Maybe there needs to be more detail in the open, the white area there above the kind of in the peak. right. Maybe that needs to be a darker color. With, some different, pattern there, maybe,
Or they just run an eyebrow across the gable ends. There's
maybe,
two gables, just run eyebrows.
yeah, maybe.
But they're looking for a final approval. Well, this is
They're looking for preliminary. It's just
This is conceptual, it says here, doesn't it?
preliminary.
Can you go to the site plan of this little, commercial building?
And the commercial it might really need to have sidewalks to the public right of way. The multifamily, maybe not, whatever fire code is, but I think the commercial, it would be good if it did.
Well, wouldn't the sidewalk along the entrance drive that doesn't have one now?
It would help.
Enough, that'd be enough.
Maybe.
That'd get you to the building.
Yeah.
But you ought to have a sidewalk on that entrance drive, just like the other entrance
And
drive.
slide the building to the right, maybe, plan right.
Well, you wouldn't have to slide much, but you could a little bit, yeah.
And same comment on the HVAC units and meters. Let's kind of dial into the details of where all those electrical meters are and make sure those are screened adequately. And show those on the plans. And did you have the pool structure here that you wanted to show?
No, we don't have a full structure. Meant to be just very small, just the bathroom.
Nice pool, just a nice pool and a cabana, we get to see it based on this project's location. Like we did in the Paramount project. We did on
Yeah, yeah.
Had a pool and a clubhouse and everything, but based on this proximity to. From an operation.
That's fine. We just need to see it along with if you have mail kiosks and all that. So just those little
But if you
details.
have somebody like a contractor like Aqua. Do it so brand active.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really a nice.
I understand the layout and the units better now. So I don't know if you need a sidewalk along the street side or the opposite of the parking lot side.
Yeah. basically,
But
architect-
and again, if that's like a closed end, it's supposed to be a park and everything for, just an amenity or green space. I would definitely look at closing off, except for the open air, the ventilation of those stairwells from the street side.
Well, I do think you need to have some sidewalks that go to the public road so that you want to go for a run, want to go for a bike ride, you can just go out your front door or your street side door with your bike or whatever and take a walk. So I'm not saying at every opening, but maybe there's one in the middle or something, if we were to study that. Anything else? Andy, you have anything?
I do have a quick question. Circle back on stone versus distribution. So great. How we like the buildings sort of the way they are. If you really, we certainly do the brick, we sort of like it the way it is with existing materials. How.
79
If they had a nice water table,
or 79?
yeah, if they had a nice water table detail with a wood water table with a cap on top, that would take the place of the brick, and then you see a little concrete underneath it. And that would be a more honest representation of the construction of the building, because the building's not built on a brick foundation, obviously.
That's why I brought it up. So we didn't want to come back and.
And it's gonna look really strange when you get to these little rails and everything, so you'd be better off to do it with wood or whatever your siding material is, hardy, yeah, whatever. But like a 2x12 with a 1x4 cap on it to shed water. I think that would work, and suffice for a foundation detail.
Sure, let's see it.
Yeah.
Sure. Any other comments, Bill,
None for me.
Peter,
Looks good.
Andy? All right, they're asking for preliminary approval. If we have conditions, you want us to state the conditions or?
This point, there were comments for consideration, so I don't. For BAC.
Okay.
And the sidewalk coming.
Yep.
On on the other entrance drive.
Right.
Study the comments and come back, find it interesting.
Yeah.
Very professional.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Is there a motion for preliminary approval?
Preliminary approval, make a motion approval,
Andy,
preliminary.
did you have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Next item, North Maple Street withdrew, I believe.
That's withdrawn.
Right. So then 125 Barnfield Drive.
So you'll see on the staff report, I included the preliminary comments. Excuse me, conceptual comments. They are requesting preliminary and final. The property line that the proposed addition would have been crossing has been abandoned and a new plat has been approved. There were no comments from the minutes of the DRB 9/15/22 meeting regarding this project.
Yep, I'm Jake Green with Quake Green for the civil on the project. We attended the previous meeting for conceptual, there were no comments. Tried to issue final approval, but we were not able to issue final approval.
Big picture, what are you trying to accomplish?
Big picture, so there's two existing warehouse buildings. We're connecting the two, matching the existing material between the two. We're adding a loading dock. Bringing the building between two existing buildings. Matching.
Kind of an expansion. Basically, it's just an expansion. Yeah. Okay. Peter, do you have any comments?
I noticed on a photograph, and I don't know which one. It looks like the existing employees are using the space in between the buildings for just some kind of green relief space. And so all I would ask is if you could replace that somewhere else and
It's,
provide green space for the employees.
so it's actually.
Again, I just saw on a photograph employees using it. I don't know if there's a table out there.
It's literally a tent. And they're using it to store.
But the existing one is a tent awning, but there's.
Yes,
Oh, I
correct.
got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a break room,
No,
outdoor break room.
no,
or
it's-
anything.
it's-
That, yeah, again, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it looks like you're eliminating green space.
Okay.
With this structure. And if you can just somehow designate another green space.
we can-
Right.
I would expect that. Probably be limited and maybe outside the front building.
Yep.
there.
I was
and
thinking
more-
on the west side,
Fair enough.
but as part of the requirement.
Bill, do you have any comments?
No, sir.
Andy? Alrighty, would the request and final approval, would someone like to make a motion? Is
Make a motion, final approval.
there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next is Garbone Townhomes. Previous proposed revisions to previously approved plans.
Jess.
So there will not be any stone on this.
Is the siding hardy or vinyl?
It's fine.
And what's on the existing buildings? For the existing buildings,
I like the existing buildings better than what you're showing here. I don't know why you just don't do the existing buildings.
Plans, we don't own them.
Well, you can copy them.
they're public record at this point.
Good point.
For me, I think the existing buildings look much better than these. I'm not supportive of these buildings. There's a difference in the facade, the articulation of the buildings, the walls going in and out looks a lot better. But there's 2 and 3 columns on the front. These, it looks like a much more unrefined product.
Suggestions on how we could.
I think you need to extend the porches continuously on the front. And then on the back, you need some awnings over those double doors. The doors that come out the back. And you need a water table detail for the buildings, all elevations, and you need to establish all kind of details for the windows.
I think this also lacks some kind of loco flavor, whether it's low country. This could be anywhere.
That was good.
Has to do with like even the columns and all, they're just so,
Everything's generic.
it's not massive enough to, like the other ones.
The columns are an 8-inch hardy wrapped, so they feel big in person when you're on the porch. It's hard to tell with the rendering. Becca, if you could scroll to the actual photos of the existing units and the rear. That top picture, so if you're looking for something, what type of awning were you talking about over here?
Like a Bermuda shutter or colonial shutters that fit the windows.
Is your architect present? Are you the architect? I think the architect needs to study what was done successfully on the first buildings that were used and look closer to that. I mean, look at that. They need to look at that for inspiration. It's very challenging for us to say, oh, put an awning there and change a window here. Your architect really needs to come back with plans that look low country, plans that look more in keeping or better than the buildings that are there. And it'll be a lot easier to have the conversation. We can't give you kind of a laundry list of, put these little parts on there.
I would also ask that you reconsider using, not using vinyl siding. I mean, you can see the imperfections just on this elevation and that.
Already.
So if you go to the site plan where it shows the layout, so essentially they build every other building out of the 4, so we would be surrounded by those buildings, so it would be kind of final or environmental hardy. So we were just trying to keep in form of the features and the finishes that were previously.
Understood. We prefer hardy. And do these buildings have garages?
There's a parking lot that runs behind.
But the existing buildings have garages. So you're not going to repeat that, right?
Okay, so the square footage of the units as it sits is about 1,400 square feet. So we're battling square footage inside. We're trying to obviously extend as much square footage as we could inside the unit with the parking availability outside. Also, we don't have much opportunity to extend past the current rear elevation due to the impervious.
on the site. So we've already had to look at input or previous material for some of those walks and some of the parking areas because we're maps for the
Thank you for that. You have anything else you'd like to show us?
So do you own the two existing buildings? Those are individually owned by,
the previous builders, if they own many of the units. But we purchased the rest of the parcel section.
I don't recall. Did you submit revised landscape plans with these? Just don't remember. Well, if you change the building, you're gonna have to see the landscape again too. Any site plan changes. All right, did you have any other questions for
What?
us?
can we go? I saw on the rear of the existing buildings, and this is where I asked, this parking lot that kind of goes into a driveway. That's a strange situation. So I don't know if you own all the property or how the property is being divided. Is there a solution to that? I mean, what happens if someone parks in front of this guy's driveway?
Did y'all buy these buildings?
We did not purchase the existing buildings.
Okay.
That's a little bit interesting.
So you have no control over what's there.
So then don't you need setbacks and landscape buffers between the buildings?
Well, there'll be,
The
landscaping.
properties.
They're different properties, right?
Exactly. So they would, yeah.
I didn't see that on the site plan. Aren't you building?
Has the property been officially subdivided? Sounds like,
Just to jump in, so this project, the paving was put in place before the other buildings were built, the ones that are existing. This project was reviewed, I believe, 2017. It was before the UDO was put in place. So a lot of the site elements don't match our current requirements. So
yeah, but
that's,
it was the one site at that time. Now it's two sites.
no,
What do you
no,
mean
it's still one site.
Well, somebody have different ownership. Can't be one site with two owners.
Right, yes, the buildings that have been CO'd are owned by Relina Homes.
The what?
The buildings that have received their certificate of occupancy
Yeah,
are owned by Relina Homes.
yeah, which is different than DR Horton.
Correct.
Purchased essentially the TMS numbers for the other 12 parcels and the.
I understand. So you own separate parcels, which have to be buffered from these parcels, the existing parcels.
I think that's a fair point. They can work out with staff.
Yeah, they can.
The staff
Yeah.
may have a reason to say yes or no or whatever, but it's good.
Actually still the HOA definite, so we had to obtain approval from Robina as well on the buildings.
Okay.
Well, Becca, I'm not sure. It says approval of revisions to final plan. So does that mean they're asking for final DRB approval or is this conceptual?
Yes.
or-
That was the request because they have already submitted for permit. And when this changeover recently happened with Relina and permits were submitted, we started going through the permits and noticed the drawings were different from what was approved, and that's why we're here now.
Gotcha. All right.
Wouldn't it be simpler if they just took their drawings that were approved prior in 2017 and submitted those? It'd be easier, I would think. Well, why do they want to build that? I know it's different and you won't get 1,400 feet per unit, but
But I'm not sure. Again, back to the impervious coverage limits, I'm not sure that those plans. hopefully allow some more green space in there as well, which might be nice.
Sure. We would need to see that for sure, even if you're not changing that, just so we understand how you're getting from your car to your unit.
They made it on there, but I did bring the site plans for the individual buildings, which might help. Look closely, you can see how some of their driveways are sized and cut off, and then over here and over here are our buildings, and you can see the gravel, how there's a patio with the walk.
Was this submitted
Yes.
to the town?
We have never approved the project with two separate owners like this.
think
We've never faced this issue.
I think staff needs to provide some clarity when they come back,
Yeah,
if they come back. So,
we need input from staff, but
all right. Would someone like to make a motion? They're asking for, I suppose, asking for final approval.
make a motion, we deny motion to approval, final approval.
All right, is there a second?
Second,
Need further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right, staff can help you out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next is Yancey Street.
Okay, so this property is a new build for flex space. They are requesting final approval. It's at the intersection of Boundary and Yancey Road. I included the previous preliminary staff report comments. Let's So the architecture has been updated to reflect the suggestions provided by the DRB at the previous meeting. Colors and materials have not been specified. A tree removal permit submittal to the Tree Protection Board has not been made. Tree protection is not shown on the trees to remain as required. Here. Okay. The dumpster has been relocated to the front left corner of the property. The rear doors have been relocated outside of the 5-foot setback. The shrub buffer on the rear of the building has been removed from the plans. However, it is not clear how the 5-foot landscape buffer requirement will be met with this removal. The drainage system area note number 9 on sheet C1.0 has existing trees located within the area and proposed landscaping to be installed. It does not appear that a grading and drainage plan has been provided. The drive aisle appears to have been widened to meet the 24-foot requirement, and the lighting has been revised to meet the foot candle requirement. No additional information was submitted regarding the turning exhibit mentioned in staff's previous report.
The last time we had met, we moved the building down south, back to the north. Eliminated the asphalt now, so we've gone the gravel, which eliminates a curb, which allows the 24-foot width there. Move the dumpster out of the setback. There's some existing, that little swath of property to the rear is all trees. I don't know, so anyways, I just seemed redundant to add the bushes along the back of there, so I don't anticipate developing that swath. Town is on the other side. On the architecture, Mr. Melky and I talked about it, we kind of agreed with Mrs. Pratt. We did add the brick around the front columns to make it, I don't want to say residential, but to add that feature to it. We changed the windows from aluminum to a bronze color. And so we just feel like it should be still a commercial building. So got the overhangs, it's got some residential feel to it, but it still looks like a home or professional. So those were the comments I think from the last time addressed. Now that it's all impervious surface The only little bit of drainage I have was the roof. So again, that was just kind of a placeholder. I have the filtration trench or something to take care of the gutters. Nothing significant. Not a lot. It's all the purpose. That's about it.
Can you go over the building colors and samples? Did you bring samples?
Samples last, I mean, we brought the brick and colors second time, you can.
Okay, okay.
Can you refresh our memory what the color of the metal is?
It's, well, there, it's green. He had green panels brought, so it's kind of a forest green. The red brick, actually, we had three bricks, and you guys picked the reddish color.
So it's a galvalume roof and
Yes,
you could make the overhead doors same color as the siding.
we could, we kind
Yeah.
of gonna match the roof, but we could do the same.
Yeah. I would make the overhead doors same color as the siding. So you don't have to look at them that much. I wouldn't ordinarily would ask for some view panels in the overhead doors, vision lights, glass in the overhead doors. Since where this building is and what it's doing. And then on the back, if you don't have in the end, if you don't have 10-foot clearance, you're gonna have to have a 2-hour rated firewall.
Well, we're
By
10 foot-
code.
we're 10 foot off the property line. You don't
But-
have to 5 foot.
No, if you're 10 foot off the property line, then you don't have to have the 2-hour, right? Okay,
And addressing the garage doors, again, I just want to make sure that, I think last time I asked, are these going to be open for the majority of the day? And I think the response was no. So I just want to confirm that, it's not going to be an open garage look,
No, they can be closed.
okay? And then I think by pushing the building, the short ends are now visible to the public. That if you can continue the brick wainscot along the short ends of the building.
The one on the north side is next to the Blackwell building. You're not gonna see much of that at all. The
one on,
the
one on. the
Yeah,
south
I
side.
think the one
On the
along the
street side.
street, the public street.
Yeah. we did do that.
I think any of the site planning comments, you'd have to work that out with staff to comply. If it doesn't comply, then you gotta work with staff.
I think the only thing that I remember from that was, he has a swept path analysis, which he comments, which was the previous person. The only thing he did is remove the dumpster, but the truck can still get in and out, just gotta make a couple of frequent turns.
Yeah, the buffer I mentioned, if that lot is treed, we would take a look at that. That is sometimes enough. That's, if it meets the requirement, then we can, but, yeah, the drainage comment, obviously engineering would address that at permitting, so.
Back when I had asphalt, that was an issue.
Right.
On all the purpose. That's,
And then does the trash enclosure need to be at the corner of the public street? Can it be hidden more?
well, the purpose of moving it there was from the swept path analysis to get the cars in and out of parking spaces, right? So originally I had it on the southeast side there, but it was in the buffer, right? So it was kind of the only, I'm really rigidly attached to where the places of the parking spaces are so that I can get cars in and out. And so in looking at where I can put it, I obviously didn't want it in the front there. And so I said, well, on the side over there is on the left. We have, the shielding, and we can put trees and plants around it, and hide it pretty much. Lower trees, right, because I'm right on the edge of that, power line. But there's really not anywhere else. If I put it up by the Blackwell building at the entrance, I didn't like that. And so that's just kind of.
What is the enclosure? Did you detail that?
In which case we can just eliminate.
why don't you just do that? Why don't you solve that problem by just saying I'm gonna have a roll out?
That's fine. we could get rid of it, do roll.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments? Bill, do you have anything?
No, sir. That's it.
Peter?
I made mine.
Nope.
Andy? They're asking for final approval. So would someone like to make a motion?
Make motion, final approval as as noted.
Second? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is 101 Sawmill Center Drive.
Okay, we'll get 3 minutes to talk about it.
So these are minor revisions to the parking area and modifications to accommodate some medical equipment. And I will let y'all go through those changes.
Hello, Milton Thomas, developer of Sawmill. So we're here for a very minor change to Rutgers facility. After our construction drawings were complete. Decided to take
You mean you brought your architects?
Of course.
Very,
What?
very much
We're
appreciated.
not used to seeing architects.
Thank you. I guess my question would be, if I recall correctly, the sidewalk along Berlin Myers is elevated. So will you see over the top into the chillers and they're super visible?
So the taller enclosure that you see on the right there is 14 feet high, and that's the one that's enclosing the generator. So that one effectively screens the 10-foot high one that's enclosing the chiller. So the height of that 10-foot is taking into account the chiller height. So we have
Awesome.
that answer.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the site plan?
So what we provided, we actually had the pre-construction meeting in May and started working, and all this came up with Roper, and so that's why we're here. We met with Jesse and Bonnie, and they asked us to come back, mostly for the site change, because as you can see, the building really didn't change at all, but there's two plans in there. One was the previously approved version. This is next version, or the current version, and with the additional equipment enclosure on the east side of the building. You'll see that driveway shifted out some. There is a landscape island just across that driveway, which falls within the large storm drainage easement. There's a 60-inch line. You can zoom in just a little bit. You can see kind of the dash lines that come in Y shape from Berlin G and then go through the property over the Sawmill Branch. That landscape island, just to the right of the enclosure across the drive, that is within the drainage easement. And so that was one of the reasons, probably one of the main reasons to come here, the enclosures, just because it's in that easement. Bonnie doesn't want us to plant canopy trees due to the root systems there, but we do have other plantings shown in that landscape island. On the entry area, you'll see in the notes there, we were able to, most of our ADA parking is where the large enclosure is now. That's been shifted to the left side of the entry road, closer to the main entrance. We were able to create, basically mirror the landscape on the right side of the entry road and the left side, which I think would be a much nicer entry experience. One of the comments also, we have the bike racks added that I guess was missed as part of the previous staff. So I feel like this is a reduction in parking. We originally were about parking space at 143, but due to the change in the use of the building, that parking anyway. So,
Is the slab of these yards level with the first level of the office building? Or better yet, have you looked at submerging this area so that the screen walls are smaller in height and less influential on the beautiful architecture that you created? Do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, I mean, it's.
Have you looked at submerging even 4 feet, 5 feet?
These are fast chiller.
Well, yes.
That's not a good idea for chillers.
Due to the nature of the building, surgery center, it's got micro.
You don't want to have sump pumps to protect that equipment.
You're gonna have that anyhow.
No, they're not. It'll go
How
drain.
is the drainage handled?
They'll
then?
drain.
How is the drainage handled within these yard areas?
So we'll have long inlets in that area to pick up the drainage.
Looks like there's one in that on this plan right in front of us between
Yeah.
O2 and chiller. It's a yard area drain, right? 12 by 12 or whatever it
That's
is.
That's over to
Need to
the-
keep it simple, just keep yard drainage.
Can we look at the elevation again? So how tall is the tallest wall?
Balances the canopy on the other side of the building, other end. It balances architecturally with other end.
All right, any other comments? Bill, you have anything else?
No, sir.
Candy? Peter, are you satisfied with that discussion, or do you have anything, other comments you?
Are there any ventilation required through the wall, or the wall is solid?
What's that gonna do? Outside.
I know, but the wall is solid.
Yes.
And what is this articulation that you're showing there? Is that recess or is that just, so it's panels? Okay, so you try to add some architecture into the screen.
Same detail that we're using for the brick that you see around the windows.
And the coping on top of the wall is what?
It's a brick.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Right. I'm sure they're requesting final approval. Someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion, final approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Springview Townhomes. Proposed revisions to previously approved plan.
So upon doing the final landscape inspections, our arborists found that some of the landscape buffers were not installed. So the applicants are here to request modification to those requirements, and I'll let them go through that.
Practical standpoint, we've got, there's an 8-inch stormwater drain that runs on the exterior rear of that building. There's also 4-inch electrical conduits that serve each unit that also go into each building. There's a lateral in each building and also the main running on the back of the building. In addition to the HVAC that's also sitting behind there. There were some sewer lines there as well, but they had to be relocated.
Where is Springview?
Right off of Trolley Road, sir.
Off Trolley?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I missed what your roles are on the project. Okay.
I'm the construction company.
So when you say they made us put a fence in, who are you referring to as they?
We did, it was constructed on one of the site plans. For us to put the fence there as well as landscaping. So we went ahead and had the fence put in.
We've reviewed this before, evidently.
Yeah, this was a 2020 or 2021 project, so this would have been through you guys. But I don't remember if that was a comment that was from DRB or for screening purposes or what, because you got a duplex that sits, duplex or a single family that sits right. That sits right.
If the landscape were required, it would have been required to be installed outside of the fencing. So I don't know if when the fencing was installed.
On the site plan, sure, that fence actually go right very back some, right.
So the fence is on the property line, right?
Close to it, yes, sir.
Yeah. Effectively, yeah, maybe an inch off or something, but it's on the property line.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Put it on the property line.
Yes.
So
Can you-
then it gives us the buffer for the, that's it.
And it makes sense not to plant any of the stuff between that and the building because you don't have room.
Didn't have room plus. like Will
So
said,
what's the question?
all the other things fit back there to the bulk drains. But-
Well, the question is, it was.
It was
The
mandated.
plans called for it,
That's right.
right? So they chose, not y'all.
But
These guys,
is it just
5 years
this
ago.
property, just the one property line?
No, well, yeah.
There's more than one, isn't it?
Oh,
On
I
that
think
one side, correct.
maybe,
You have 3 buildings there, and we had issues on all three sides.
let's go through.
Okay.
If we could, let's go through it one at a time. So. At the top of the sheet, that's where the white fence is, right?
Yeah, that's a-
Plan calls for all that landscaping. You look at the picture, it makes sense that why would we put it here? The only issue I have, not only, but Becca, is they're required, so they're really seeking a variance from what's
What's
required.
approved, right?
And so what's the hardship?
There ain't no room as a hardship.
And the are the HVAC units, they look like they're in the buffer. Those aren't allowed to be in the buffer.
No,
Well, that one in the back is.
That one.
It's hard to say from the picture.
And what you can see is the stairs from each unit that end up into this space too. It's just outside.
This one?
Yes, sir.
This one?
Yes, you got that's the rear, obviously, of each of the 8 units in the building, and then there's a stairwell from each of the units to the exterior that you see.
And those are exit stairs? Or-
For the rear of the building.
Oh,
It's like a townhome style.
We just need to tear the buildings down.
Yeah, why wasn't this brought up pre-construction? Or that everything that is shown on these drawings did not work?
You know, it's one of those things, the sewer was back there too, the water was back there too. When you get into the field and start constructing this, is when you notice, since it's all
Right.
private utilities.
So
These drawings were
again,
approved in
why,
2020.
why wasn't all that
It's the date.
dealt with as a construction issue?
Well, the
question.
landscaping just was installed, so it just came to that whole construction.
But isn't someone coordinating all this? I'm confused why this is in front of the DVR.
That's what we pulled together.
So just to provide a little bit more clarity, so the building department does not inspect for zoning requirements. We are hopefully hiring a zoning inspector to be able to have staff to do that. The planning department usually is not involved in these inspections of the buildings until the very end, when the landscaping inspection occurs. You know, there's obviously the pre-con inspection that our arborist does and planning staff complete, but in between then and the CO for the building, there aren't inspections for at least the planning department. And it's not something that the building department looks at. So when this was brought to our attention, when our arborist was out doing the final landscaping inspections, we met with these gentlemen to discuss the feasibility of staff approving maybe, you know, reducing the buffer requirement, you know, looking at smaller landscaping, but we determined that really, especially along the top property line that you see on your screen, it didn't seem like planting, and discussing with this with the arborist, that it was feasible, but we at a staff level could not approve them to not put in any landscaping. I will say on the right side of the parcel, if you're facing Springview Lane, this area is treed. So we did discuss with our arborist allowing the trees on that part of the parcel to suffice at that buffer, or as a buffer for that side.
These
But
buildings have been built, right?
Yes, we've got some very COs that are occupied.
Why don't we grant this approval, because it's the cow's out of the barn. And it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look like it's hurt anybody. The public is not here to object. Let's approve it and move on.
Sounds like you're making a motion. So is there a second?
Yes, sir.
Andy made a second. Is there further discussion?
I would just be I'm just concerned about the exit that you talked about. I'm concerned about setting a precedent with things in the buffer. And just setting the precedence of this was approved back in whenever. And because of construction, it wasn't built according to plans. So.
That's certainly.
It was, except for this one issue.
But I think there's 3 issues.
No,
All right, there's a motion on the table. There's a second. We've had discussion. Calling for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you very much. Central Avenue is deferred. So next is 622 Old Trolley Road.
so this,
Board, I have a board member that has to leave 5 minutes. So just ask.
we got 2.5 minutes.
You got 4.5 now. You got 4.5. So, all right, so let's roll.
y'all go ahead.
Okay.
city that did not have DRB. So, so the process going through everything, the iron ore is painted. We are also asking for people to paint metal awnings for each door as well as the
Excuse me, I went by there and looked at it today. And what my thought was when I rode by and parked in the median in the middle of the road and looked at it was that the backs of the building should be painted to match. And the awning should be painted white, silver, some other color at the entrances. And those two things, painting the metal panels of the back walls of the building, and it would look acceptable to me. And taking care of those awnings at the entrances.
Kind of following up on that comment, there was a stop work issue, which is why the backs of the buildings
But they were gonna be painted.
weren't. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what's your role again? I know who you are.
Contract.
You're, okay.
Okay.
So I also want to address the use of temporary signage. So throughout, it looks temporary to me. So I don't know if they're banners. I mean, you can see it on the photograph right now. They're on this screen wall. They're just counting all over. Do you have something as part of a permanent tenant sign criteria? Or is it just anyone can put up a banner?
Existing building. Okay, I see what you're talking about. As far as I knew, all of the signage is actually on the glass doors themselves. That you see that banner that you talked about. Where's
Allied Arms.
see the view from the parking lot kind of right in the middle?
Middle, Allied Arms.
Okay, yeah, so there you go. That was the sign installation prior to the painting, and then the signage was taken down. And then just, like you said, kind of willy-nilly put into whatever place that the tenants decide.
So as part of this approval, can you either prohibit tenants from doing that? And just doing graphics on the glass like you envisioned it?
So we have a uniform signage plan. We've actually been through you guys to get the Trolley Road frontage. But it was our understanding that the stuff on the interior of the property wasn't subject to DRB.
So you're
That's-
saying you cannot.
That's a sign ordinance thing that we don't deal with.
But I think
We have to, we can approve signs, yes. But we don't have to get into signage for this building. That's gonna be a zoning thing.
I think we have purview over placement.
Yes, we do. And we can do that in conjunction with the zoning planning and zoning people.
We had a stop work. Was any of the signage planned to be replaced, or was it just taken down?
It was just taken down.
So really, right now, the signage is just taken down, so the wall behind paint. But it sounds like the plan was to just put those same exact signs back on the wall. So what you're seeing in that picture as that banner would go away once the signs are put back.
And those signs have all been staff decisions. We didn't rule on these signs, period, ever.
Now there are
So if you
signs
go back to
facing
the street.
Yeah, if you go back to
forward facing.
the existing, there you go.
So those signs that
So
are
these
there
guys.
now would go back on.
That's,
They were just taken down.
that's staff.
And then there's signage to the right that you can't see in that photo, that fronts trolley that we did get variance for. Yes, it's blank now, but there were some signs there I think there's 2 or 3 that'll be reinstalled, and that was, I think we received a variance from you guys some years back.
Well, this building project way before we existed. Long time before.
I would think that another way to say what you're saying, Peter, is yes, to paint the rest of the building black, they have to get staff approval to put the signs back up. And we would prefer to see a cohesive sign package.
Something more uniform.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've discussed that, so that's no problem.
So does it satisfy what you're, okay. Anything else you have to add or would like to discuss?
And you noted Bill's comment about the awning should be a white or an off-white.
And we're proposing it to be a silver.
It's a silent night.
Kind of a silent, right?
Oh, you got a color, yeah. I'd like to see something lighter, but that's fine.
Yeah, it paints a little bit silvery.
Well, yeah, and we were in that same mindset, but with the metal and the cleanliness of them may become an issue, and having to repaint and apply every year. We're not really often, you're trying to avoid the maintenance.
Can we go back to the rear elevation?
I don't know that they got.
It was on.
So what are your plans with the garage doors?
The garage doors would be all one color. I believe that the rears of the building are also all one color.
Paint the garage
So
doors
it's,
same
right,
colors.
so it's all the dark color?
Yes, sir.
Make them all disappear.
Good idea,
Great idea.
good idea.
Now, I do think that the lettering, I think it showed in one of the slides that rather that there's some additional lettering that was a part of this application as well. Yeah, just a for each unit number.
That's fine, that's
great.
That's nice.
That kind of complements the awning color as well.
Looks great.
Hmm.
Looks great.
That's good.
Fantastic.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion? They're asking, I suppose that's asking for final approval.
Motion final approval, comments noted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. And Candy needs to,
Wait a minute, we gotta keep her through this one. Yes.
next is Miles Jamison Townhomes.
This is the last one. We won't have a quorum. Let's get the last one done. Okay, guys, you gotta be quick. You got 3 seconds.
I'll be quick. My name is Tom Wallen, I'm Vice President of Land Development, Eastern Homes. We have this property under contract. And I know we're being quick,
Are you asking for conceptual?
preliminary.
Preliminary.
Yeah, exceptional.
Pardon?
We updated it, it says preliminary
I didn't see that.
Okay,
report.
all right.
Previously, it was gonna be conceptual. Sorry, we withdrew that package and did more work.
This
Okay,
says,
first package,
this says
Oh, that's right.
conceptual.
She gave us the addition.
but we've,
So are we conceptual?
Preliminary.
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 Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so, in working with staff, the goal of this project, this townhouse community, its own, neighborhood commercial. We wanted to save a lot of tree buffer along the outside. So a lot of that is, as you'll see in some of the photographs, thicker understory. We want to selectively keep that, complement to that, save those trees. So those are the regulated trees, but there's even more than that in the pictures and photos. And then create an interior, little court of the community. We have one entrance out onto Beverly Road, and then we have a secondary emergency entrance out onto Jameson. That road intersects with the street across. We kept the stormwater management pond along the bottom. There's a fence against the existing neighborhood at the bottom and a power line easement against the bottom. Along the left-hand side is also a power easement, and then you go up against the church. You can go to kind of the next one, kind of move fast. Yeah, let's get to the rendering one. So again, these are surface park. The 2 rows that are up along Miles Jameson have surface parking behind the units. So the outside one faces out towards Miles Jameson. The middle row faces interior to the community. In working with staff, saving more trees, they recommended that we do surface parking along that bottom row so that we can kind of keep that whole element working. So that's kind of the way you see that loop. Jump down to the architecture. We have 3 and 4 unit buildings. And this is a set of plans that we currently are in the process of starting construction on with Goose Creek. So there's some modifications that will happen from this to what we would end up with. Wouldn't be brick, it would be, or it wouldn't be the stone, it would be brick. These porches are 6 feet, we would go to 8 feet. Those, like I said, 4 and 3 unit buildings. On the 4 unit building, we put the porch in the center. The 2 end units have a side entry that could be flipped to the front. We like it on the side to kind of give more breakup in terms of what's going on. So you kind of see that look and feel. Jump down to the architecture, we have a detailed architecture package here of what's going on, would be hardy in terms of the material or a hardy type siding. And we can go to the 3-unit elevation, even though it's in black and white, that's the 4-unit, I think, elevation. There you go. So on a 3-unit building, we took the porch all the way across to kind of make that unit look a little more uniform in terms of what's going on with it. And as we go through this, this shows pickets. I don't know, since these are on grade, that we actually need to have a railing or picket across the front. I think that gets to be noise. I'd rather have just landscaping as part of that component of it. The asphalt shingles, we can do some metal accents on the roof or the eyebrows in terms of the roofing components to it. Questions? Since I'm talking fast, I'm sorry.
You're noting shutter colors on the schedule, I don't see
They
any
can all be the same,
but I don't see any shutter.
I don't see a color on there, but I can make sure we get it on there.
Where are the
Don't see
shutters?
shutters.
I don't
Where
see
are the shutters?
shutters.
Might not have shutters on.
Well, these windows should not have shutters because they're doubles. Be on the
Okay.
sides.
And sorry, these side elevations will be enhanced for the sides that face the streets, the kind of exposed sides. So again, preliminary, this is kind of that face.
I would say big picture, you're headed in the right direction.
Okay.
And I like what you're saying about dressing up the sides, the colors, the massing of the front,
And keep the handrail.
all that. And
Like,
working around existing trees. I thought I saw a big live oak in the middle of
there
this one.
is, go back to the tree plan.
Well, I thought I saw one that was being removed.
No.
Okay. Maybe
So
I'm thinking of a
on the
different one.
first, as you come into the first house on the first building on the right, there's a large live oak in the parking area.
Got it.
And then the other big one, the real grand one is the large one in the bottom left-hand corner.
And no amenity center, right?
Yeah, right, in that area.
Just
There, if you go over to the tree save, there are a couple of trees in the center. We had Mac and the arborist. I can't
Justin.
remember, Justin kind of walked this, they kind of went through what was being saved and why, and the things that are in the middle weren't as valuable as really making sure the outside, not only the tree saved, but the understory that's unregulated is kind of kept and enhanced, kind of in that perimeter buffer.
Sounds great.
I want to quickly talk about the architecture real quick. So if you go back to the side elevation or the elevation we just saw. Obviously, this needs something.
Yes.
And if you can't figure out what's going on, the use of a hip roof to minimize that wall may be beneficial to you. And I think there needs to be more low country details, whether it's rafter tails, some brackets, some medallions, something
Roof overhang.
Put some gable vents in it,
needs to happen.
gable vents.
And if I could,
And then one last thing. There are shutters on this building, right? You're planning shutters or you're not planning shutters?
not on the double windows, they'd only have to be on these
Oh,
singles.
can we see the front elevation then?
Well, you need to detail the windows better because you need better sill and jam details and,
Right now, 'cause I'd like to finish this, that whole end.
yeah.
Let me just take that as a comment.
Yep.
that we would expect to at least
Yeah,
have a
Again.
rationale for that.
That low country
yes.
regional feel.
See how you've detailed the gables on the front elevation? Do the same thing on detailing on the end wall elevations.
The last thing I would say is I would encourage you to study having usable porches,
8 feet.
8 foot minimum.
I'm waiting.
All right, prefer 10. 8 foot minimum.
Now it's rude. but-
Exactly. And weather like this, don't you want to be outside? So, all right,
I got it.
that was very quick. Any other major comments? I think they're on the right path. All right. Requesting preliminary approval. Can I have a motion?
Motion preliminary approval.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job.
Run, Candy, run. You're 10 minutes late.
Appreciate you staying.
Becca, did you have anything else?
So thank you. You got it done.
No, I just have whiplash now, but if you would like to make a motion and have a second to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Let's go.
go.
Great, Saul.